Welcome to Chewey's History Break, brought to you by Hitting the Bricks with Kathleen. You know it ain't hooey if you hear it from Chewey. The story of the Library of Congress we know today begins in 1783 with a 32-year-old James Madison, a member of the Continental Congress, proposing a list of books that would be useful to legislators. Congress, always known for swift, decisive action, after signing the Treaty of Paris, the Articles of Confederation, the ratification of the U.S. Constitution, you know, basically everything that happens in the Second Act of Hamilton, and after the Whiskey Act, the Bill of Rights, and the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, the Fugitive Slave Act, the Whiskey Rebellion, the end of the Whiskey Rebellion, the relocation of the capital from New York to Washington, the election of John Adams as second president, the passing of the Alien and Sedition Acts, passage of the 11th Amendment, creation of the Department of the Navy, and the death of George Washington. After all of that, just 17 short years later, in 1800, John Adams approved an act of Congress allocating $5,000 for books for the establishing of a library for Congress. After much deliberation, they decided to call it the Library of Congress. It was located in the north wing of the Capitol building and had 740 books. In 1802, the position of Librarian of Congress was created, and President Thomas Jefferson named John James Beckley, who was the clerk of the House of Representatives, as the first librarian in what we refer to today as job creep. But in 1814, while the British were getting a little payback for that 4th of July a few years previous, they burned the Capitol and the Library of Congress was lost. However, Thomas Jefferson, living in Monticello and living well beyond the means of even a wealthy plantation owner, sold 6,487 books for $23,950 from his personal library to refurbish the shelves of the Library of Congress and, not coincidentally, help him recover from his own debts. FYI, it didn't help. In subsequent years, the Librarian of Congress became a full-time position, and they continued to expand the influence, services, and acquisitions of the Library of Congress. All this to say, 114 years after James Madison had an idea, the largest library in the world opened its doors to the public in 1897. The new century saw exponential expansion of services and collections, and in 1939, the Annex building was opened to the public, followed by the planning of a third building in 1958, the James Madison Memorial Building that opened in 1980. 1980 also saw the renaming of the first building of the Library of Congress to the Thomas Jefferson Building, and the Annex building of 1939 renamed to the John Adams Building. So there are three buildings that comprise the Library of Congress, named for the second, third, and fourth presidents of the United States: Adams, Jefferson, and Madison. Today, the institution has over 39 million books, along with 167 million other items and printed materials. In the 233 years since its establishment, there have been 14 librarians of Congress. Currently serving is Carla D. Hayden. She was sworn in 2016 and is the first woman, as well as the first African American, to serve as the Librarian of Congress.
Well, it's about time.
And that concludes Chewey's History Break. You know it ain't hooey if you hear it from Chewey.